Well, hey friends, happy Sunday. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everybody is doing great today. And I wanted to show y'all a really easy and inexpensive meal that will feed a family of four for $4.37. Now, that is contingent on you already have a few things in your supply already, but I'm going to go through the process of making this for y'all. And I hope that you'll join me because it's a tasty treat to eat. And like I said, it's very inexpensive. All right, guys, we're going to kind of pretend like you're in the kitchen with me. I'm going to try not to do too much editing here with this. So to make this inexpensive supper, you're going to need 4 medium-sized apples. You will need a 28-ounce can of green beans. Drain those off. And then you're going to need 2 cans of tuna. And let's see, I usually buy the Great Value. Is this 5? No, this is 4 ounces. So 2 4-ounce cans of tuna. I usually buy the Great Value brand, but this is just what I happen to have in my cabinet, so we're going to use this today. And let me give you the prices on these things. Let's see, the cans of tuna, if you buy the Great Value brand, that's the Walmart brand, are 96 cents each. You need 2 of those. And the 28-ounce can of green beans is $1.28. And then the apples, these are Gala apples. They're $3.96 per bag. We're using 4 apples. Those bags typically have about 10 apples each in a bag. So that brings them down to about 39 cents a piece, a little over that. So we're averaging out to 39 cents for each apple. We're using 4. So that brings the total to $4.37 before tax. Now, again, you're going to need a few extra things, but I am betting that you probably already have these ingredients in your house. So you need some eggs, cornmeal, a little bit of bacon grease, a little bit of chicken bouillon, cinnamon, butter, and salt and pepper or other seasonings. So let's get started with this. First things first, you're going to start off with your beans, and you're going to put those in a pot. Then to those green beans, you are going to add 2 things that are really going to spice up the flavor here. Bacon grease and chicken bouillon. So let me get the chicken bouillon out of the refrigerator here. Here it is. I love this Better Than Bouillon brand. So if you're cooking green beans, don't just open up a can of green beans, or if you're cooking fresh too, don't just open up a can of them or make the fresh ones and then not season it well. I love to season mine this way. They taste so good. And so what I do is I take a little bit, that's probably about a teaspoon of the bouillon here, and I put that in the pot. And then if you don't have this bacon grease, you can also just use a slice of bacon too in here. And then I'll also use just a little bit of bacon grease just to give it a little bit of flavoring. You do not have to do this if you don't want to, but if you save your bacon grease, you don't have to buy this expensive stuff. This is the best stuff in the world though. Oh my goodness, it's $6.99 for a container, but it is the best stuff in the world. I love it. So anyway, so what you're going to do is you're going to mix this a little bit together here. You're going to put some water in this to coat everything, and then you're going to set that on your stove to cook and let all of those flavors mix together. So that's the first thing that you do. So we're going to put this on the stove here and turn that on. Now, next, and we can do this, okay. So I have this wonderful old apple peeler and apple corer. I love this little item. I've had it for years. It has a little suction cup here. It's called Peel Away, and I love this. Watch what you can do with it. It makes light and easy work out of peeling and coring apples if you have to do a lot of them at once. So let's turn this right here so y'all can see. Okay, so here we go. So you pop your apple onto the little device here, and it's suction cup down. You get momentum going. Woo-hoo! Yes. just like that. Check that out. Got a peeled and cored apple. There's a little bit of peel left on it, but that's okay. And then you just pull it back, start again. If you've got kids, get them in here to do this for you. They have a ball, and it's teaching your kids how to cook, and you're having fun at the same time. Now, I love this. So check this out. Woo! It's all in the hips, y'all. It's all in the hips. I may have to edit that part out. Okay, sometimes it doesn't always come off. There we go. Do it one more time here. There we go. Now you can put your peelings in the compost pile, take them outside, feed them to your chickens. They will love it. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna make are our fried apples. Now you can buy a can of Lux fried apples, but they're expensive and they're full of all kinds of sugars and things that you don't really need. And these taste so good without all of that extra stuff. They taste great alone. So let's move this over here just a little closer so y'all can see down in here better. So I've got my little skillet here, and I'm going to add about a tablespoon of butter to this skillet. I'm going to get it melting here. So I'm going to move this over to the stove. So now I've got a bowl, and I'm going to take my little apple slices and I'm going to slice them in half, just like that. That's all you need to do. Be careful with your knife. You're cutting like this probably is not a wise way to do things, but I've been doing this a long time, so I know when to stop. And if you don't have a little peeler and corer like this, don't worry about it. Peel them just normal, and you will be fine. So now, I am not going to add any sugar to this. These apples are plenty sweet, nice and crisp, taste delicious. All I'm going to do is throw these in the skillet and add either some cinnamon or apple pie spice, pumpkin pie spice, just something to kind of spice it up a little bit. If you want to add sugar to it, have at it. But as these cook down, the natural sugars from the apples start to come out as well. And you do not need sugar. But again, some people's preferences are different with their taste. So if you want a little sugar in there, by all means, add you some sugar, because they will be delicious either way. Oh. Oh my goodness, this smells so good. All right, so right now, we got our beans cooking over here with our bacon grease and our little bit of chicken bouillon, and then we got our apples cooking. Do y'all remember, some of y'all from the Southeast might know about this restaurant chain. Do y'all remember Mrs. Winter's Chicken? Well, they had green beans, and when I was in college, I would stop and on my way to school, and I'd get myself a big old Mrs. Winter's sweet tea, and they had a little individual size green bean container. And those green beans were the best, besides my grandmother's, that I'd ever had. But they told me that they flavored it with bouillon and bacon grease. And so that's how they got that flavor. So I mimic that every time I make green beans, and it's so good. Okay, so let's put away a couple of things and get out a couple of things, and we'll get started on the next part. All right, here. So now we're going to move on to our next part, which is making, whoa, are you dizzy yet? Sorry about that. I don't have my regular tripod, so I'm having to use this funky old one here. Okay, I've got my 2 cans of tuna open here. I've drained the liquid off of these. These are packed in water. I like to buy the kind that's packed in water better. So I've drained the water out of it, and now I'm going to put the tuna into a bowl. Now, if you don't want super stinky garbage, always wash out your tuna cans in the sink before you throw them away, because your trash will stink way more than necessary if you don't rinse them out. Same goes for sardines. Lord, sardines smell to high heaven, and your whole kitchen will stink if you don't rinse out the cans. So look, all you got to do, rinse them out like that and then toss them. So for what it's worth. All right. Or you could, instead of tossing them, you could take the labels off and use them as wedding decorations. My best girlfriend, when she got married, her mother had some tuna can decorations that lined the sidewalk of the church. Somebody had spray painted them white and put them on a wooden stake. And so we lined the walkway of the old church with these little tuna cans and put candles in them and ribbons in them. Those were homespun weddings, folks. We didn't have those ritzy weddings like they do now. Oh my goodness, no. But anyway, the marriage is still lasting, so that's the most important thing, right? Okay, so now 2 cans of tuna in a bowl. To that, you're going to add 2 eggs. Oopsie. All right, there we go. And then you can put salt and pepper. You can season these any way you want to. I love to use spike seasoning. It's a kind of a natural health food store type seasoning. I guess you can get it at other stores. I'm not sure. I always get it at a little health food store. It's so good, and I put it over in one of these little containers. You might be able to get it from Amazon. I should probably look, and I'll leave you a link. It is the best seasoning. I love it so much. So I put a little spike seasoning on top of my tuna here. And then I also like to put some dill weed in here too, just to give it an extra good flavor. And then we're going to add a little cornmeal. If you don't have cornmeal, but you do have some crackers on hand, you could use some crushed Ritz crackers or crushed saltine crackers, just whichever you have. Now, I don't measure, so I'm going to kind of eyeball it here and see what happens. And you're not going to add any liquid to this because the tuna is already damp anyway, and then you've got the 2 eggs in here. So that looks like about a 1/4 of a cup. I'm going to stop there. We're going to mix it up and see the texture, see how it looks and feels. My apples are still cooking back here. I'm going to give them a stir. Whoa. Turn those down right quick. Now, I'll tell y'all too, I'll flip the camera around in just a few minutes so you can see it. I have my iron skillet on the stove, and it's got a little bit of bacon grease in it because we're going to turn around in just a minute and fry our tuna patties in that bacon grease. Okay, so that's still way too damp, so we've got to add more dry to this to get it to go together well. Now, you're going to have to use your hands with this and to get the best texture. So I'm going to go ahead and pour in some more cornmeal. And we're probably at about 3/4 of a cup now here of cornmeal. Always remember you can't take away, but you can always add in more. So add slowly. Start out with just a little bit and keep adding. This looks better. Yeah, that's going to work. That's going to work. After you've been cooking a long time, you can just kind of cook by feel. So now, I usually use cheaper tuna when I do this. This is the fancy solid white albacore tuna. I can't even say it. So it's chunkier, and you don't want that. So I'm going to have to put my hands in here and just give it a squeeze and make those little pieces of tuna smaller. Because you want everything distributed. Distributed. Good heavens. All right. So now, we got it all even out here. Kind of squish in those pieces to make everything evened out. And now I've got an extra plate sitting right here, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my little tuna, make some little balls, and then flatten them down, make little patties just like that. So let's see how many we can get here. Those are probably, gosh, 2.5 inches in diameter. I don't really know. I didn't measure. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. But and you can get 4 at least, but typically a little bit more. This is going to serve a family of 4, and then you can usually have a couple of extra too. Anybody who's got a bigger appetite. If you've got young boys or a man that you're feeding, you're going to want to have a little extra always. Because those boys will eat you out of house and home. When our boys were here and they were younger, my grocery bill was so expensive because they just plowed through food. Let's move this over here. And it's good too, this is an aside, but it's so good to teach those kids how to cook. I taught my kids how to cook and how to do laundry, because a mama gets real tired of doing laundry after a while for the whole household. So if you teach them how to do their own laundry, that's a plus. And if you teach them how to cook, that's even better. Now, they may not clean up like you like, but if they can cook, that is so helpful. So I'm going to wash my hands real good here because they're going to be stinky. My grandmother gave me this iron skillet when I got married. Gosh, have I been married? I think I've been married 28 years now. Is that right? 95? Yeah, 28 years ago she gave this to me. There we go. Okay. So I've got my hot bacon grease. If you don't like bacon grease, you can use another kind of oil. I've been trying to avoid seed oils, but if that's all you have, then you can definitely use Crisco or Wesson oil, something like that. So now let me get another skillet, and I'm gonna start putting my tuna patties down in my hot grease here. Here we go. Let's see, I wound up doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of them. Don't crowd your skillet, because you want to have room to be able to get in there with your spatula and flip these. So 3 or 4 at a time is enough. So there we go. I'm going to turn up that heat just a little bit and let those babies cook. And I can't stop eating these apples, y'all. Oh my goodness. They are so good. Okay. It's important to taste as you go along. So now I just tasted my green beans, and they're not nearly strong enough flavored. So I didn't put enough of that bouillon in there. I can taste the bacon grease, but I can't taste that bouillon. The bouillon is salted, so I don't recommend salting it any extra, but you salt to your own taste. This is your meal, so you do it the way you want it. You season it the way you want to season it. Now, when you're cooking something like this, that's a little bit, got some liquid in it, that's a little bit damp, what you want to do is start off with a good hot skillet, and so that you can get one side good and brown before you flip them, and that way they'll stay together better, because if your skillet isn't hot enough when you start, it won't get crispy on the first side that you cook it, and then when you go to flip it, it can fall apart on you. If it does, it's not that big of a deal. You can just serve a lopsided piece back together tuna cake, but that's okay. And while these are cooking, let me tell y'all about tartar sauce. Now, these are so good with some homemade tartar sauce. I grew up with a daddy who fished, and so he would fry up that good fish that we caught, and oh man, we ate so good when I was a kid. But he would make his own tartar sauce. And so I make it just the same as he did. So all you need is mayonnaise, some pickles. You can use pickle relish, dill pickle relish. Don't use that sweet stuff. And then soy sauce. I know that sounds weird. It makes it a funny color. It doesn't look like traditional tartar sauce, but it's a tartar sauce that I grew up eating. And that's what all my kids know. It's tartar sauce made Papa's way, and it is the best stuff. So I don't measure it again. You're just gonna have to figure it out for yourself. But it is the best tartar sauce when you make it homemade like that. Put a little salt and pepper in there too. I also like to put dill weed in my tartar sauce as well. All right, so these are gonna finish cooking, and meanwhile I'm gonna get a clean plate. My grandmother had a book years ago. I think one of my aunts bought it for her at the Cracker Barrel, and I think it was called Poor White Cooking. Do any of y'all remember that book at all? It had a wild-looking lady on the front cover, and it had a bunch of recipes, and I'm pretty sure tuna fish cakes are in that book, along with every other meal that we made growing up, and white beans and Vienna sausages and cheese and crackers. I mean, that we could have wrote that book. It was okay to be poor white. You just didn't want to be poor white trash. So I love that cookbook. Somebody in my family has it now. I don't know who. I think my aunt may have taken it after my grandmother passed away. But I'd like to get a hold of that thing because it had some funny stories in it too. So if any of y'all know what I'm talking about, drop me a comment and let me know. And if you're watching this far, let me know if you have fixed this meal before, if you fixed tuna fish cakes, or if you even ever heard of something like this. Now, I will tell you, when we were feeling fancy, we would use salmon. Okay, so our first batch are done. So I'm gonna take them out and then add a little bit more bacon grease to my skillet so that I can fry up the last spree. I got a little paper towel right here that I can, there's not a lot of bacon grease in here at all, so I'm not really worried about draining it, but draining the grease off, but just in case, it's good to throw a paper towel in there. My skillet's probably a little too hot. And there's a recipe also in the Laura Ingalls Wilder cookbook, apples and onions. Have y'all ever made that? That's a real good combination. It's sweet and savory. I love sweet and savory things like that. Do you like sweet and savory? Like I had one time I made a pork loin that was stuffed with apricot stuffing. I just love that combination. You can see right here I've kind of messed up one of my patties there, so I scooted it back together. Kind of falling apart here. Well, all right, my friends, we are finished with our meal. We've got our tuna fish patties. We have our fried apples that are so good. Oh my gosh. And then we have our green beans. Again, this will feed a family of 4. If you make your patties a little bit smaller, you can have two a piece. I wound up having 7 here because I wasn't measuring enough when I was patting them all out. But you can have 8 if you make them a little bit smaller. This was inexpensive. Again, it was $4.37 before tax, and that is, hopefully you had some of those ingredients that I listed, like eggs, cornmeal, bacon grease, bouillon, cinnamon, butter, salt, and pepper at your house already. Excuse me, already. I choked on my little tuna cake here already. I sampled some and they are good. So I can't wait to dig into this. This is easy, inexpensive, and tasty. And it's stuff that I grew up eating, and I still like to serve it from time to time. So I hope that was helpful and informative to y'all. If you're still here, give me a thumbs up, please, if you like this video, and let me know what your go-to meal is if you're at the end of the month and you've got more month than you've got money at the end of it and what your favorite meal to eat and fix is. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you are loved and you are special. You always remember that. I love you. Y'all take good care and I'll see you on the next video.